Hey guys, at Softly, we're all about integrating the most cutting-edge academic research and sports science practices into what we do. Over here, we've got 3 of the most highly decorated tactical professionals executing some of our latest ideas.
Just a tip.
Lads, we talked about this. Cut. Hey guys, so we've got Coach G with us again today, and we're going to talk about how to profile different athletes. Now, obviously, we understand that everybody is slightly different, so we like to use that n=1 model, but that can get overly complex really, really quickly. So what we want to try and do is bring this back in and make it a little bit more simplistic. And Coach G has a really cool way of defining 2 kind of buckets of athletes.
Yeah.
So you can either be what we term an elastic athlete or a muscular athlete. So
And if you're not sure about the difference between the 2, you kind of inherently already know. We can both have the same vertical jump height, but the way we get there will be slightly different. And we can all think of someone who's very fast and twitchy and someone who moves like a big semi-truck, right? So a lot of force versus a lot of rapidity of force. And it's important that you recognize what kind of athlete you are, because that will dictate the direction of your training when something goes right or wrong.
And kind of like G was saying, we'll show you some examples today, but a really interesting exercise to perform is to look back into your training history, into your past, and see what sports or activities either you chose or chose you.
100%.
So things like basketball, volleyball, that's probably going to lean more towards the elastic dominant athlete, whereas your rugby players, your linemen in football, powerlifters, that's probably going to be more towards the strength and the power side of things. The big thing we want to try and leave you guys with is that neither one is better or worse than the other, but you just have to know how to play to your advantages and play to your strengths.
Yeah, if you have an event coming up, and obviously that's going to be different for everybody, you can imagine that maybe it's important to work on things that maybe you're not good at, and as you get closer to them, now you're focusing on, so if you're a twitchy guy, that's when you get twitchy. If you like doing lots of power work, that's when you start doing power work.
So let's give you guys a couple of examples to have a look at and allow it to explain this a little bit more.
Great. What we're going to do now is the difference between a depth and a drop jump. And what I want you to appreciate is just, can you observe the difference? Okay, so let's go ahead and have you start with a depth jump. Okay, now let's do a drop jump. Yes, great. Okay, so the difference between the 2, you're already going to know yourself as an individual which one you would prefer doing in your own programming. So again, it's good from an accountability standpoint. Like if it's important to measure, you're going to know I tend to be more elastic or I tend to be more muscular. If things start going wrong, meaning you're dealing with joint pain, etc., it might be over specificity or dialing in on one of these buckets too much.
Or if you find yourself plateauing. So if you kind of been doing the same training for maybe 6-8 weeks, and those numbers just aren't kind of nudging up in the right direction, that could be when you could kind of start investigating a little bit more. How would you go about that? Like, how would you investigate that?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would probably take a look at my numbers overall. Are my numbers, just like you said, plateauing and I'm not seeing much improvement? Incidence of pain. So again, so like from a tissue standpoint, if you open that door too soon, things are going to start to get rusty.
So if you're still not too sure whether you're more elastic or more muscular dominant when it comes to moving, a really simple DIY test you can do at home is a straightforward vertical jump with a camera filming your jumping action. And then how you get that height is going to dictate whether you're more likely to be more likely to be force, more likely to be elastic based. So as a really crude reductionist example, we're going to go through a force-driven jump first of all. And then we'll go through elastic.
So
if I break down the differences.
So if you saw that, his feet were on the ground a lot longer with the first jump because he's trying to get his body to produce more force. With the second version, his feet were on the ground a lot less time. And not only that, the range of motion that we saw expressed was a lot tighter, a lot stiffer. So you should be able to do both on command, and there should be a difference between the 2. So typically, if we see that they're the same, I immediately have questions on, where's the gap? Are you just elastic and using elastic strategies all the time, or are you just a muscular? And then there's a great opportunity and reason why you should train these other systems.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking before about, well, what do you do if you're one or the other? And that kind of depends on you, but also your circumstances and what it is you're training for. So if you're what we term a constant readiness performer, so someone like fire, LEO, someone who's on a QRF type response where you have to be ready to go all the time, we tend to stick more in kind of loosely termed a peaking model, because we don't want to push you into the ground so hard that you're fatigued when you come on shift.
100%.
So if you're doing something like that, you probably want to play to your strengths and do things that are more like what you're already good at. If, however, you're not in that constant readiness kind of category, so you're maybe more traditional military, where you've got a deployment cycle and you know you're going to have a good period of time where you're not about to head out the door, then we can afford to kind of train your weaknesses a little bit more and go a little bit deeper with that super compensation. So, G, can you give us some examples of how to train those
So for
things?
example, you're further away from a deployment, you know when the date is coming up. Bilateral movements like the jump you just demonstrated would be a great example. But let's say you got to be ready now. Single leg variations will be very helpful too.
What are your go-tos?
Yeah, so counter movement jump, single leg, or a counter movement hop, I should say, where I'm just landing and controlling my landing. You want to get sexy, you want to get more specific, we can make that a little continuous. And you see, even there, now I'm forcing my elastic systems to contribute more versus that first example where I had time.
Yeah.
Because I'm more concerned with force production, whereas the other one, I have to recycle it. Yeah. And notice again, two-legged, single-legged.
Yeah.
So then you also have, not only do you have vertical, you also have horizontal, which relates much to the acceleration work that we were doing earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would you program that in terms of kind of reps and sets?
Love it. Okay, there's a magic number that in our industry, a lot of people don't like to speak out to, but it works, okay? In the sense of it's accounting for the real world environment, 3 to 5 reps, 3 to 5 sets, 1 to 2, or even 3 to 5 exercises. So generally those go at the beginning of your programming.
Is that so you're fresher? So
you're fresher
Yeah.
because these are very nervous system dependent, and they require a lot of force and violence to be expressed rapidly. Think about it like this, like you want to play the sport before you train. If that makes sense, like an in-season athlete.
Yeah.
So plyometrics usually happen first. Less is more. So I know there's a popular adage in archery that you practice every day. Joe Rogan shoots 100 arrows a day. Take the coaching approach, 12 to 16 arrows a day. Every other day, you got to make those shots count. So 3 to 5 times a week, 3 to 5 reps, 3 to 5 sets, you're going to be in a really good spot. And I would encourage you to consider, when you're doing those single leg exercises, the difference between your left and right side.
That's huge. That idea of being able to diagnose and train at the same time, that's the way forward. It just means we maximize the time in the gym. Unfortunately, we aren't professional athletes as tactical professionals. We don't have endless hours to train. So the more bang for buck you can get out of your time in the gym.
Yeah, it's about value, not more. Okay, so to sum everything up, it's important that you understand what kind of athlete you are. Are you a muscularly driven athlete or an elastic systems athlete? And based off those things, how are you training each accordingly?
Absolutely. And that's something that's really useful on the Softly app, is we have both a strength and a stamina team. So like Coach G was saying at the top, one isn't any better than the other. And we want to try and make sure that we're maximizing the things we're good at, but we don't want to have too many deficits. So we strongly encourage you, if you're not training for anything specific, to jump from one stamina to one strength, to one stamina to one strength. But as with everything, if you have any questions or you have any specific goals in mind, reach out to one of the Softly coaches and we'll help you out.